I don't think the world is necessarily a bad place. I think the media chooses to focus on the negativity because that's what's driving their dollar, and that's what's driving, like, instead of playing on people's emotions, they need to report the facts. And I also think people should dig and actually do their research, like take the extra 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, whatever it is, to look and actually find out the information for themselves and decide for themselves, instead of listening to MSNBC's or Fox News's opinion and making that, or just reading the clickbait title on Facebook, you know?
Welcome to America Undivided. I'm here today sitting with my friend DJ Bangarang.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Where'd you come up with that name?
I used to live in Utah County. I was going to UVU, and I was kind of talking to this girl at the time.
Right.
And Hook happens to be my favorite movie. And we were watching it, and she was like, Bangarang, that should be your DJ name. Like, I was just starting to DJ. And it kind of like resonated with me because in the movie, Robin Williams, rest in peace, he's a kid, he's an adult, but he's living in a like when he gets taken away to the fantasy world, you know? Yeah. And they're like, be Bangarang, which is like, to me, that's like that kid inside the adult, you know, like that, the guy that's like, yes, I'm an adult, but we're still gonna party, we're still gonna have fun, we're still gonna let loose and like relax every once in a while, you know? So the name is kind of a reminder of myself to just have fun and just to let loose. I have Send It tatted on my arm here, like no relation to it, but at the same time, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, yo, like just wake up and kill it. Wake up and just have fun. Just remember that life is serious, but it doesn't have to be serious all the time.
Right.
So
nice.
Yeah, man.
I like it.
Thank you.
So where are you from?
Originally Missouri.
Originally from Missouri, but you went to school at the U.
Actually, yeah, UVU.
UVU.
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in Kansas City till I was 12. And then when I was 13, I moved to St. Louis with my parents, like with my dad, 'cause my parents were split.
Right.
And then when I was 20, just before my 20th birthday, I moved out here.
Okay.
And been out here ever since. This was 2011.
So what brought you out here?
So in high school, I started seeing this girl. Like we met my junior year, and like nothing was really happening. But then like my senior year, for whatever reason, we just started talking. Like I really feel like people are put into your lives for like at certain points in your lives for a reason. And we started talking, ended up dating. She moves out here to go to BYU. She's LDS. Right. And we dated all through the summer, all through the school year. She comes back the following summer. This is summer of 2010. We were class of 09. So this is summer of 2010. And we were quote unquote serious as like 18, 19-year-olds can be.
Real serious, right?
Real serious. Oh, I know what love is at 18 and 19 years old. And ended up moving out here to quote unquote go to school, but it was for her. And long story short, 3 days after I moved out here, we broke everything off.
Huh?
Yeah, and I just stayed. And
you stayed?
Yeah.
So how come you stayed?
Because like I love my friends and I love my family back home, but I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in doing the same thing over and over and over. And I've always been the type of person that's been like, I'm gonna go my own way. And I want to try things, because the worst that happens is that it doesn't work out, or like life just doesn't work out. And I was having fun out here. It's quiet, you know, like there's no trouble. Like Utah's a really nice place. It's quiet. It has its quirks. Utah has its quirks, but it's a quiet, nice place.
So tell me a little bit though about growing up in Kansas City or Missouri.
It was fun. You know, so it was really weird. So obviously my parents were divorced. My mom, we lived in the inner city and stuff, and it was dope. It was fun. We had everything we ever wanted. You know, it was good. My mom's killed it, And then I moved to St. Louis with my dad, and it was just like a complete culture change because he lives in the suburbs. So all of a sudden, it's like I go from being the majority to the minority like real quick in like a matter of hours. And it was different. It was definitely different. My friend circle changed a lot, you know, like as you can imagine, like living, like going from the inner city to the suburbs. It was like your Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I give my mom a lot of credit. I really do, because letting one of your child like to just go with another parent and like going from seeing them every single day to once in the summer, it's gotta be hard, you know? And like, just I'm as an adult now, I like, wow, like that. So I give her a lot of credit for realizing that I needed my dad in my life at that specific time in my life, in allowing me to go and live and be with him and my stepmom and step siblings and stuff in St. Louis. And yeah, I learned a lot. Like looking back at it, growing up in Missouri, it was fun. It was good. And it really, looking back at it, it's made me more aware to like the issues, you know, that are around. So
there's a lot of ignorance
in
the world, just because people haven't taken the opportunity, you know, and step through the fear, I guess, of moving around and going somewhere that I don't know anybody and having to, you know, kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the best thing that ever happened to me was me moving out at 18, 19 years old. And the fact that I never moved back when things got hard. Because things have gotten real hard over the years. And I've had the door open to me. It's like, why don't you just come back? And I almost did a couple times. And thank God I didn't go. You know, thank God I didn't go. Because it forced me to have to grow into the man I am today.
That's it.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be half the man I am today had I not, you know, made the decisions I had and suited up and showed up, even when I was scared to death and figured it out, you know?
Yeah.
And realized that things are a lot different in the world than the way they were where I grew up.
Yeah. I echo exactly what you're saying. Like, I'm grateful, like you, that I stayed out here because it's taught me a lot. And just, yeah, it's really easy to get stuck in the same mindset if you don't experience new things. Right. And it's really easy to get into that box of just monotony if you don't go out and experience and do new and really challenge yourself and push yourself. I think that's what it is. People are afraid to step outside that box because it's like, oh, well, what if it doesn't? Or how about, I look at it like, what if it pops off? Like, not what if it goes bad? What if it pops off? And yeah.
Well, it's something I think is interesting. I heard you say that I think a lot of people might miss, only because, again, they weren't here for a different interview that I had. I interviewed another young man. His name was Jay Curley, and he had grown up in the Midwest and then, you know, moved out to California and now lives here. And one of the things I asked him was, you know, again, the difference between the different places, right? And I was really surprised to hear him say that things were worse in California than they were where he had grown up. And interestingly enough, what he had said was kind of what I heard you say, which was things were more segregated when I moved to California. And it was a lot less accepting and loving environment, just based on, you know, how people had like segregated and separated themselves, right? And I kind of heard you say the same thing. In the inner city, I was kind of, in the comfort zone, everything's all good. Then I moved out to Missouri and to the suburbs, and now all of a sudden it was like huge culture shift. Yeah. And it was, where do I fit in? Yeah. And I don't think people really see that. I don't think they want to see it. I don't think they're looking for it, right? Or know what they're even to look for, right? And I think it's really unfortunate that, here Jay, which is one of the nicest kids you could ever meet, or yourself, would go through that. Mm-hmm. Even though I believe that what I hear you saying is, I'm a stronger person because I did.
Yeah. Like that is it. Like that's it. Like I'm grateful because I know how to, because of those situations, even just being out here, like being one of the only few African American DJs out here in Utah, it's different, and it's taught me how to be a stronger person, because once again, I'm not in that comfort zone. I'm not back in Missouri with everybody that I know who's going to like what I do, regardless of what I'm doing. You have to open your mind essentially to other ideas and other things. And it's like, holy cow, it's really not that bad.
Well, and believe it or not, we need it as much as you need it. Mm-hmm. And when I say we, I'm talking about any group that doesn't have that diversity in it.
Absolutely.
Me being from down south, I never even knew there was a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints until I was moving out here. And I was like, oh my gosh, you don't want to go out there because of this and that, and I heard some crazy stories. And thank goodness they were crazy enough that I'm like, these people don't know what they're talking about. I better go check it out for myself, right? But, since I've been out here, my ex-wife and my kids were going to church, and they wanted me to go with them. And so, of course, I'm now going to, Jesus Christ, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I even joined the church, and I, went to the temple, and I've made the trip, And I will tell you this, it was good for me to be there. And it was really good for those folks for me to be there. Because I'd be in meetings and they'd be talking about how they wanted to go and recruit people in the neighborhood and see if they could get them to come to church. And they'd be telling me how they were going to go about this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to run them off. I'm like, why don't you just try to be their friend first? Why don't you just, this, that, and the other? Why don't you give them the chance to ask you, rather than you go over there and basically you're going to run them off if you do what you do. Oh my gosh, thank you for telling us that, because they were well-intentioned people. That was not their intent. Right. Does that make sense? Yeah. But they had grown up in, unfortunately, again, ignorance, right? To other people and their beliefs, and how could I, build a relationship with somebody outside of my group, So thank goodness, that you're willing to put yourself in that position, because as much as you grew, believe it or not, so many people grew because of the example you set. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you another example. I've been watching some tennis lately. There's been some amazing tennis being played, and records being broken and or trying to break records, right? And Serena Williams. Amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, black people don't really play tennis, do they? Nah. You know what I'm saying? They only play golf, right? Tiger. But here we got going to go down the best ever, probably, at golf. The best woman ever, probably, at tennis, right? And thank goodness for those people that was willing to be the first. Absolutely. To be scared, to be uncomfortable, to step through and hold up that that light for people to show them what was possible. Yeah. You know? And to do it so graciously. You know, I watched her lose a couple weeks ago, and the way that she handled herself at the end of it. I mean, I could like see her team. They're upset. She didn't play very well. She could have made a bunch of excuses. She didn't. She totally like stepped back. Oh, all the credit to her. Good for her. You know, and I was like, man, how classy was that? To be on the spot, you just lost, and to be able to pull yourself together and represent yourself that way. And man, I love that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think it's good for the culture to see, I think it's good for the youth to see people who look like them succeeding, because it helps the youth realize, oh, hey, I don't have to, you know what I'm saying? I don't have to fit the stereotypical mold. Like I can get out of here. I can do these things, and I can be a better person, and I can provide for my family. I can provide for my neighborhood. And like just to echo what you say, like, I think it's like Serena Williams has inspired a whole generation. Her and Tiger Woods and just all these other just athletes of just any athlete in general, you know, but especially like athletes of color, like not to just make it about that, but it's inspiring, because it's like you see that person on TV and it's like, hey, he or she looks like me. They can do that. So can I. And that's honestly like a reason why, because I've had ups and downs with this DJ stuff and radio stuff. Like I've literally been on the verge of quitting so many times, but I never will. Because like, you know, my little brother, like he looks up to me, and like, I want to be the type of person that like, when I see just anybody, I want them to like look and be like, yo, I can be great too. You know, the youth needs to know that they can be great too. And yeah.
You know, I told my brother about 1.5 years ago what I was planning on doing.
Yeah.
And this was like just an idea, and I was starting to think of how I was going to go about it. Mm-hmm. And he laughed at me, and he started making fun of me, you know, and joking with me. And of course I got a little defensive and butthurt, and like came back at him a little bit, you know, shut him down, because I just didn't want to hear it. Yeah. But over the past 6 months, there's been a number of times that he's like reached out to me and said, I'm proud of you.
That's good, man.
And that means a lot, because like I said, my brother, he never really lived anywhere but Alabama. And, you know, I can't believe some shit comes out of his mouth sometimes, right? And I'm like, man, you know, and I even tell my wife, I'm like, I know that's not even my brother. That's just bullshit that he's heard. Mm-hmm. He's just, you know, parroting what he's hearing around him, right? And so for me to get those messages or texts or whatever, you know, means the world to me. Lets me know just what we're talking about, you know, what you're saying with your younger brother, you know. You never know who it is. A good friend of mine, Elvis, shared a story. He's like, you know, so these two guys are walking down a beach, and there's all these starfish that are being washed up on the beach from the tide. And so he proceeds to start picking up the starfish and throwing them in. And his buddy starts laughing at him. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm saving the starfish." He's like, "Dude, you might as well quit. You're never going to be able to save them all." It's like, "Yeah, but I saved that one."
That's a perfect. It's a perfect example of why you shouldn't stop, because even if you can't save everybody, you can help influence one person.
Yeah. How'd you like the car?
I like that. I like the car a lot. I like the car a lot. So yeah, when are we going out to the Salt Flats again?
You know, I grew up in a divorced family, single mom, raising 2 boys. I never thought I'd have a car like that.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of money. You know, I didn't know any different. I was like you. You know, I think my mom's my hero.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, on how she did what she did, I have no idea. I mean, she could stretch $1 farther than anybody I know.
I heard that.
Right? And so I never knew I was lacking in anything other than having a dad around.
Right.
And I was trying to hide that because she was working so hard. I didn't want her to know that was something she couldn't fix. You know. But it's kind of like we were talking about, you know, how, you know, the choices you make and moving around have made you the person you are. Me having to work my butt off to try and put my life back together after I made a couple of bad decisions and kind of had to start over from scratch. Is what kind of led me to the point where I'd earned enough money to where I could afford a car like that. And so I went and I asked my wife about, you know, buying that car. And she's like, you know, if that's what you want, then you should buy it. And so I bought it. Next thing you know, I wanted to fix it up and make it my own, you know. And she's like, you know what? You go ahead. If you want to, you just go ahead. Wow. You know? And then I spent as much money turning that car into something else that I did in buying it. You know, it was just absolutely ridiculous how much money I had ended up spending on it by the time I was done. And I never really heard anything from her. She's like, well, you know what? You deserve it. You worked your butt off for that. I'm like, wow. So if you think about it, you know, I got the blessings that I did from realizing the benefit of my hard work. I have a belief now that I could actually do that. I never imagined that I could earn that kind of money. Right? And then I got that love and acceptance and you know, that okay from my wife that let me know she loved me.
That's the one.
More than that money, right? That she appreciated me and my hard work and was willing to let me do that. So in a sense, you know, I could never really give that car away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Nobody will ever appreciate it the way that I do.
Right. But here we are. And here we are.
So, yeah, I'm kind of excited to share it with somebody and give it to somebody. Even though I have a feeling that people are going to take the money. You know, when I see on the news that 59% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, they can't afford to pay the taxes to take that car home. They're going to take the cash.
Right.
And that's why I said the car or the cash, because unfortunately in today's world, we can't even think about luxuries like that when the everyday needs aren't being met. You know?
It's hard right now.
That's why I think it's important for guys like me and you to sit down and have conversations like this about how can we come together about some of the stupid stuff so that now we can work on some of the important stuff.
Right.
Like how are we going to do a better job preparing our children so that we don't have them shooting up schools? so that they can mentally process all the information and the pressure they're under these days. You know, how can we do a better job of coming together as a country and saying, hey, if we're going to replace 3 million trucker jobs with artificial intelligence driving trucks, then we need to somehow come up with jobs for 3 million people. Or we can't do that right now.
Right.
Because we're cannibalizing our country. We're self-destructing.
At the mercy of like big
the
corporations.
Dollar.
Yeah, the almighty dollar. I think just to even start, I just think more dialogues like this. Like I feel like if more people saw this happening, like just us sitting down, having a conversation, drinking waters, whatever, just chilling and talking about it, I think that helps because it's on both sides, you know, like not one side is better than the other, you know, like it's, I think people should need to realize that I don't think the world is necessarily a bad place. I think the media chooses to focus on the negativity because that's what's driving their dollar, and that's what's driving us apart. I really think it's the media driving us apart because you might turn to Fox News and it's like, oh, well, this thug was shot. And then you'll turn to MSNBC and it's like, oh, well, another unarmed African-American was shot. Like I feel like it has to start with the media, you know, like the media needs to report that, hey, they just need to report the facts, I guess, necessarily. Instead of playing on people's emotions, they need to report the facts. And I also think people should dig and actually do their research, like take the extra 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, whatever it is, to look and actually find out the information for themselves and decide for themselves instead of listening to MSNBC's or Fox News's opinion and making that, or just reading the clickbait title on Facebook, you know,
and then telling everybody about it.
Yeah,
as if it was gospel. Exactly.
And it's like, that's not even true. Not even close to being true. Like, I read this article the other day and it was frustrating. It had nothing to do with the actual title. Like, nothing to do with it at all. But people were sharing it like, oh, well, this and this and this and this and this is happening. And it's like, that's not what this article said at all. and yeah, I just think people just like let their guard down. We're all the same. We literally all have the same interests. Like, we just talked football 20 minutes prior to this. 20 minutes prior to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like big media doesn't want to see a black and a white guy sitting in the same room watching because it's not good for them. And I think that we as a people just need to realize that the media is the issue, because the media is not going to report the facts. They're going to report what they want you to hear to get that dollar bill. They don't care about anything else. They don't, you know?
I think it's unfortunate that we allow them to play us like that.
Absolutely. It is. It really is.
That's what's unfortunate.
It really is.
Because it's easy to point the finger at them. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, we chose to participate.
That's true. That is a good point.
You know?
That is a good point.
And so really what I'm asking is for us to take our power back. And, you know, the government, the media, they're supposed to work for us.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be pulling our strings.
Yeah.
You know, we're supposed to be pulling theirs.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we've allowed them to separate us down into controllable groups.
Yep.
So whether that's white and black, whether that's women and men, whether that's gay and straight, mm-hmm. whether that's Democrat and Republican, mm-hmm. you know, whether it's CNN or Fox, right? We allow them to break us apart into those groups. And now I can't hear anything the other person says. And therefore, I create that ignorance that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how right you think you are. There's always going to be your side and my side, and then the truth somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, the only way I'm ever going to see the truth is if I'm willing to get all the information.
Exactly.
And be able to like look at it, you know, and look at it at a spot of wanting to understand rather than to be right.
Absolutely.
You know, Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey, I loved that man. And one of the things he said was seek first to understand.
7 Habits of Highly Effective
Then
People.
to be understood.
Absolutely.
And if you look back at like, you know, different negotiations, that was the key negotiating factor of how groups were able to come together.
Absolutely. And
one of the biggest aha moments for me was even reading a silly meme one time that said, you know, pro-black is not anti-white. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, wow. That's so true. Why do we get defensive? Why do we think we must? You know what I mean? That's so silly. And so, you know, my hope was that it's kind of like Oprah even said. I saw on Oprah, and she's like, you know, I don't want to do stories on, you know, racism and black and white and stuff like that. I want to show families in real life and what they do and allow that to do the job. Absolutely. And it's interesting because the more you sit down with somebody and you talk to them, the more like you find out you are. You know, and everybody wants to make all this money, and guess what? Even the Oprah of the world, even the billionaire, once you've made enough money to meet your needs, your everyday necessity needs, we're all the same. We all want the same things. You know, we want to be happy and healthy and have a family and you know, all those things. You know, we all go to Walmart. We all go to the grocery store. We all have to cut the grass. You know, we're all the same.
You hit the nail right on the head. Like it's we are allowing ourselves to be separated. When in reality, like you said, we are all the same people. We all have bills. We all have debts. We all have kids. We all have the same issues. But yet we're allowing people to come in between us. And that's, you know, that I feel is something as we as Americans need to realize. More people need to realize. It's like, just because that person is a different skin color than you or believes in a different religion than you or you know, is a different sexuality than you, does not mean that they're different from you at all. In fact, you couldn't be more like further from the truth. They're not different from you at all. We're all the same. Just like you said, Stephen, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand. That book changed my life, by the way. Like, I took a class. They have a class at UVU. Right. And it changed my life. It changed my whole perspective on things because it's easy to build up a wall. But if you just sit down and just let someone just explain their side and legitimately listen intently to what they're saying, we all want the same thing. You know, like the people who might live in the trailer parks in Georgia or Alabama are the same people who live in the projects, whether it be Missouri or Kansas or wherever. It's the same issues. We're the same people. You know what I'm saying? The only difference is our quote unquote skin color, you know, but we're the same person. But that's not even a difference if you think about it.
It's not a difference.
So like
different shades, yeah, the same thing.
It's the same thing. Like we're all going through the same thing.
Like a red Camry versus a black one.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. Like you gotta get a speeding ticket in both. So it's like we are, yeah.
So, how do you think? One thing while we were talking about Stephen Covey, because There's another thing he said in that book that I really loved. And he said, a lot of times people get so caught up in climbing this ladder of success that they find themselves on the top of the ladder only to realize that they placed the ladder against the wrong wall. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the problem today is that people are still fighting a battle that there really is no winning to. That even if you won, you would realize that I should have stopped a long time ago. That's not what I wanted. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But they're so stinking caught up in doing it and going through those motions, they can't even see past it anymore.
Right.
You know, it's like Tony Robbins says in his course, he's like, you know, a lot of times people are arguing and they don't even remember what they were arguing about. And if you could just stop and you could ask yourself, you know, what's the point? Well, my point is not to argue. Well, then, okay, stop. You know, and it's really that simple, you know?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, everybody's wanting to be right rather than to do what's right. And I think doing what's right is really the answer. So how can we maybe do a better job and turn the page and step into the possibility of what we could be?
Honestly, man, we just need to, I think that more conversations and dialogues like this are perfect. I remember when I used to live in Kansas City, like there were officers who would just come and just hang out, you know, like just, you know, just using that as an example. That is something, you know, that I feel like, now granted there weren't cameras and stuff back then, but what if, because let's be real, like police brutality, it's a thing, you know, and I've had a conversation with police officers, and it's like, it's not even that police officers are bad, because I would say 10% of police officers are bad, if that, 5%. But the media choose to focus, like take this small percentage of the pie and boom, blow it up. I don't feel like we need to stop allowing that to happen. Meaning when an officer just comes and plays basketball with a bunch of kids, that's the type of stuff we should be sharing. I'm not saying turn a cheek to the negative stuff, because yes, that stuff needs to be taken care of. However, I feel like there's more good going on in the world than there is bad. But we are choosing to focus on the bad when we really should be focusing on the good. So I think if we as a people would just choose to focus on the good and be like, yes, this person right here is a bad person, or yes, this situation, because there are some people you're just not going to change. Like, you're just not going to change. But if we can just focus on the facts and focus on the good of us as a whole and realize that, hey, we are all similar and we all want the same things, that would be the first step. It's just focusing on the positive and like.
So let me ask you this. What do you think would be easier? To educate children or to fix adults?
I would see, because you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but at the same time, so honestly, I would say educating children, but I'm not gonna say try to fix adults, but you can still educate adults.
I'm glad things are a lot more open. Mm-hmm. I'm glad all the movies, all the documentaries, mm-hmm. you know, that are out there today and shedding some light on some things that we really haven't seen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And of course, I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. I'm watching them all. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people aren't, but I'm watching them. And I'm getting a lot more educated mm-hmm. on some things that, you know, of course, weren't a big deal to me before. I'd never looked at them before, right? And you hear a lot of people talking about it. But I'll tell you the one person that I really, really admire even more, the more I've gotten involved with this, and that's Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. One of the things that he knew, and he was one of the best speakers you'd ever hear speak, and one of the most educated guys you'd ever hear, right? Mm-hmm. And stuff. But what he knew was to put on a great demonstration, to put on a great speech, or whatever, right? Was one thing, but to have real change, you needed to change the laws. You needed to change the record books. Mm-hmm. You needed to rewrite history. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a commercial. It's not a movie. You know, we need to have some real movement in order to see real lasting change. Absolutely. And unfortunately, I haven't seen that since he's been gone. Now, I did see the other day that Taylor Swift is trying to work with, you know, the government. And of course, that's not working out very well. But I tell you what, if that lady was to get involved with something like this and call the people to rally around outside of the government, mm-hmm. outside of media, outside of self-interest, should come together, women with men, gay with straight, black with white, I think we would be amazed at how fast the government would get behind us and all of a sudden start responding to us rather than us responding to them. Mm-hmm. How fast the media would get behind us rather. I mean, in today's world, it's all about attention. Everybody's fighting for that same dollar to get in front of that same person, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TV, whether it's movie, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. If you get 125 million Americans, half of the adult population, to say, I want change, nobody can stop us. Nobody. You're right. We can paint the picture. You're right. America could be so stinking strong, so stinking bright that, you know, we will have to build a wall because everybody is going to want to be here. Mm-hmm. And that's what it should be to be American. Mm-hmm. To be one of that 327 million should be like holding a lottery ticket. Absolutely. And as much as I love this country, I don't think, I said it on my last podcast, that our government and media is a reflection of who we are today. Mm-hmm. You know, that fear does sell. And they keep blowing up that 5-10% into something bigger. Mm-hmm. And we have to create something outside of that to where we can create that measuring stick of hope and unity that's going to, you know, cause us to be able to get it back to what I think it could be, you know? I would agree. 100%. Like, yeah. I always ask this question. If you were to rewrite the government today for America, got to rewrite it, would you divide your citizens into races? And if so, why? I would, for the simple fact that I think that our race represents our culture. And I feel like the different cultures is what makes us different, but also unites us. So it's like, I have friends who are from Mexico and I love Latin culture, right? And then I have some other friends who are from Ireland or something. And I love the Irish culture. And I feel like the culture, we can bond over our different cultures. So in that sentence, like
in that way, I would. Does that make sense? Because I feel like our culture unites us, but at the same time, like it's a catch-22. Because, like I said, I like our differences is what makes us one. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I appreciate it.
Like,
I don't necessarily agree with it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I think it's wrong.
Right.
You know, I think your opinion is just as good as mine, right?
Right.
It's just like I said, I think there's your side and my side and then the truth in the middle.
Right.
And I can only see so far because I've only been so many places, right?
Right.
And I have to be willing to listen to you for me to get that.
Right.
And for me personally, and I think a lot of Americans, right? I don't think you can have it both ways. And when I say that, what I mean is that I don't think our government has any business in my history, in my nationality, in my culture, right? My culture may change. You know, that's something that's up to me.
Absolutely.
But as a born U.S. citizen, I think that I deserve the same rights, liberties, and freedom as anybody else.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as our government, what business does my government have in my culture, nationality, what I choose to teach in my household
right.
to my kids? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think we confuse the two. Does that make sense?
Like
so I'm proud of my heritage.
Right.
So I think a lot of times I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my heritage if I was to say yes, that I just want to be recognized as a U.S. citizen. That I'm disrespecting my heritage. Am I?
No.
I don't think so.
No, not at all.
I don't think so. I could still be the proudest African American if you choose to call yourself. I think that's an insult, honestly. You know, I think that we made that term up because it made you different. That you should have been called an American just like me. Yeah. That to call you an African American makes you different. And now I can treat you different. I can look at you different. You know? And you know, I read an article and this gal said, you know, I'm not a Chicano. And she went through this, you know, throughout this article that, look, you know, I am of Mexican heritage, you know, a Mexican descent, but I don't practice. And I don't want to be called that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be called Mexican American because now I'm not American, I'm not Mexican. And who am I? You had to make up a special thing for me. Mm-hmm. And so some people, I think, you know, that's a badge of honor and I like it and I want to hold on to it. And they feel like they're going to lose that with a movement like what I'm talking about. Yeah. Right? That I'm somehow, I'm being, you know, I'm not giving the respect that I should to my heritage or whatever, right? Yeah. Being disrespectful. But I don't think it should affect that at all. I think that's something that should be personal and private to you. And if you want to be proud of it and put a flag outside your house that says Roll Tide, then good on you. You know what I mean? Or African flag or whatever, right? Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the last thing I want is my government using that to say that I'm different and I should be treated different than anybody else that's a legal U.S. citizen. See, a lot of times I feel that our desire to stand out puts us in that position to then be discriminated against, to be ostracized, to be separated from,
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to citizenship, when it comes to being a U.S. citizen, when it comes to being an American, I think we need to learn how to stand together.
Absolutely.
With our differences.
Right.
Because when push comes to shove, I don't want you any separated from me. I want me and you arm in arm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He was born right over there, just like me, same hospital. Let's go do this. Let's handle our business. Then if you want to go back over there and do your thing, I want to go over here and do mine. Okay. But when push comes to shove, we need to remember that we're together in this.
Right.
I don't like using the term African American anymore. I call you a Black American. I call me a white American. They call me, European descent. I don't think so. I was born in Alabama. I'm just a redneck. So, yeah. But if I want to be proud of that, I can be, and I can preach that and I can teach that in my house and how I feel it should be done, right?
Yeah.
And if I decide then later I'm not down with that and I want to go a different direction, I can. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be on record anywhere unless I put it there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think, again, it comes down to, we a lot of times, unfortunately, we're like fearful creatures. We like to protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's like a lion's going to jump out from behind that door. So I'm always on, just in case I'm ready to protect myself, but it's never happened, but I'm still ready. And so when we start talking about, going to citizenship, whoa, wait a minute. I kind of like, being proud of this but you could still be proud of that. I don't think it has to affect it unless there's something you've decided that, I can't do both. Right.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Right. No, I just I agree with you. My thing was, I just feel like we can all be proud together of our differences that make us each unique. I feel like it's something that we can all be proud of together, which is why I said what I said,
Right.
Because like I said, what makes us different brings us together. Like the fact that I'm different, you're different, but we're not different at the same, like we're both Americans, but like, does that make, like, okay.
I get you.
Okay.
No, I get you. It's a hard one. Because if you think about it, we're just really smart animals.
Yeah.
They have chosen to live by a set of beliefs in society, Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when we don't realize that things could be different because we've been programmed to think within these parameters.
Mm-hmm. And not outside.
And the reality is we created it. We created the parameters that we're living under right now, and we could change them any day we choose. All we need is the majority of people to stand together and say, hey, this is the right direction for all of us.
Yeah.
For the majority of us. Not all of us, because we'll never get them all. I don't want them all. I want everybody to be able to hate if they want to hate. You can be as miserable as you choose to be today. Right? Mm-hmm. But I'm sick and tired of some of the old stuff that I've been dealing with for the past 50 years. And I don't want my kids or your kids dealing with it.
I heard that.
So what I would love to see, what I've bet that car on, is America being sick and tired of the way things are and being willing to come together, at least half of them, and vote for positive change. I don't care how we do it. I don't care whether it's my idea, your idea, or somebody else's. Mm-hmm. But I want us to start asking the question of how, rather than saying it can't be done.
I like that. And I would agree. And I think this newer generation, like my generation and below, is that generation is that well, why are we doing this way generation? Like there are, and I think thanks to social media, it's made it so people can research things. We have these right here that we can just, research at any time and like form our own opinions. And we're headed in that right direction because there are a lot of younger kids who are like, well, wait a second, that ain't right. Kids who are 10, 11, 12 who are on their phones like, well, wait a second, that's not right. And I think in the next 50 years, things will change. I think the world's going to be a completely different place. And I think we'll look back on moments like these and be like, we helped influence that. Because some kid saw this video because he was trying to win some car. And he was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? He was trying to win some car. And he was like, oh, wow. Like, he was, once again, the starfish. The starfish. That one kid, it's yeah.
Some crazy white guy praying in the gym. And next thing you know.
Like, I'm just saying, like, it's things like this is what more of America needs, and we're on the right track. America as a whole is on the right track because over the past 3 to 4 years, we've been awakened to these issues because of our phones, because of social media is a double-edged sword. It could be used as a great tool or a bad tool. And I feel like if we can flood the world with more positivity and just show that, hey, we're going to change the world. We can change the world. The only thing stopping us is us. Us, this right here.
You said it earlier. We've got to be willing to try.
Exactly.
We got to at least try.
I would agree.
Brother, I should appreciate you coming in and talking to me.
I appreciate you having me here, man. This was really cool. And I'm excited for the future.
I look forward to us doing some things together. I'm excited about the future.
Me too, man.
I'm excited about you and your career and what the heck you're going to do. Because from the first time I met you the other day when you came by to drive the car, and just a good energy about you,
Thank you.
Then we're out there and the other guy that saw you outside, he's like, oh my gosh, how you know him? He's such a good dude.
Yeah.
And everybody I've talked to says the same thing.
Thank you.
I had the opportunity to listen to your program on U92 Saturday as I was driving out to Camas.
Thank you.
It was hot.
Thank you.
It was on fire. It was good. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keep up the good work.
Well,
let me know
it, brother.
How and when I could support you in whatever you're doing.
I'm insane.
Stop by and see me anytime. I'd love it.
I will. And seriously, this is I'm grateful for Fernando for introducing us. He was like, yo, my God, Rich, he's giving away this car, showing him racing. What is he talking about? But like, he put me on game and like, I'm grateful because I've racism as someone who's like I said, I'm in a biracial relationship and I will have mixed children, and I don't want them to grow up in a world where they are mocked for obviously kids are going to be kids, right? But we can teach them, what's right and what's wrong and how and teach the future a healthy way to think and to not judge. And I'm honestly like, I'm grateful that you wanted me here to be a part of this. And thank you. Like, this is incredible. And what you're doing is incredible. Like, don't care what anybody else says. This is incredible. We will, yeah.
You're welcome. So, you come back anytime you want. I'd love for you to come back.
Let me know. Thank you, sir. Seriously.